My name is Tasha Nesbitt. Thank you for being here with us tonight for our Conversations and Connections event. I'm going to just make a couple announcements and then we'll get right into the event. First, I'd like to have a land acknowledgement. I'm going to start by recognizing that while we're in cyberspace right now on this call, those of us who live in Oakland, Berkeley, Alameda, Piedmont, Emeryville, Albany, anywhere in California really, are on Lisan Ohlone territory. And those of us in San Francisco are in Ramaytush territory. And those in Contra Costa are in Miwekma territory. And I'm probably saying all of that incorrectly, but forgive me, please. If you're somewhere else, you can locate a native land that you're on. Here, I'll put it in the chat for everyone. We want to make sure that we're honoring our indigenous land. I put it in the chat. Look it up where you live and see what land you are on. So now let's get started. Welcome. I'm Tasha Nesbitt and I'm the president of Women in Film San Francisco Bay Area. Thank you for being here tonight. We're a volunteer-run nonprofit organization that actively provides networking, education, and social opportunities for more than 1,000 women in TV, film, digital in the San Francisco Bay Area. Our mission is to empower, promote, and celebrate women's creative work. We do this by delivering useful solutions, building a strong community, and furthering the craft of women working at all levels in film, television, and digital media. Through our network, we host events, virtual and in-person mixers, panels, workshops. We also nurture a thriving online community through our newsletters, our blog, and our social media. We cherish diversity and invite people of all ages, genders, ethnicity, national origin, range of abilities, sexual orientation, gender identity, financial means, education, and political perspective to join Women in Film San Francisco Bay Area as active members and/or board members. Most of all, we invite you to be fully present with us tonight during this special event. And now I'd like to introduce my fellow board member, Julie Rubio, to say a few words and introduce our guest panelists. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Tasha. I'm Julie Rubio. I'm the business director for Women in Film San Francisco Bay Area, and we really appreciate everybody coming out tonight. Welcome to Conversations and Connections. We really wanted to have this because this is a whole new world that we're living in. And there's key ways that productions have changed during the pandemic. So what's the new normal? And for day-to-day work and television and media production, what is that normal now? So tonight we're going to be covering a few of these new normals. And what is that new normal? And what does that mean to be COVID compliant? What do producers need to know pre-production wise? And just to ensure that everything goes really smoothly in production. So thank you for coming. And I'd first like to introduce our panelists. Industry panelists is including Lindsey Davis. She's a full-time testing administrator, health and safety on the TV drama 911, starring Angela Bassett. And Christina McKinley, our newest board member, has recently certified, she's now certified as a COVID compliance officer for the series Lesbian Straits by Women in Film San Francisco Bay Area member Margo Dean. And Christina can explain the process of getting certified locally. And we'll start with Lindsey Davis, full-time testing administrator, health and safety. So welcome, Lindsey, and thank you so much for coming. And if you could just please share with us your day-to-day on set and ins and outs of being a test administrator on a set.
Sure. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Robin and Tasha. And hi, everyone. I am so genuinely excited to be here to share about the work experience that I have been having since July of last year. I'll tell you just a little bit about myself and my entertainment industry, film and television background, to just give you a little sense of how I got to where I am. And then we're going to dive all into the testing admin life, which is nothing short of exciting. And by the way, I love the way that we started today. I don't know which native land I'm on. I'm in Santa Monica, and I've been in California for 2.5 years, but I was born in Queens in New York, and that is where I'm from. And I moved to LA 7 months before the pandemic, and before joining the team at 911 season 5. I was kicking around as an actor, as a production assistant. Then I became a producer for a fitness videos company in New York. I worked for 5 years at BBC America. So I was on the channel side as the executive assistant to the head of the channel. So there's a lot of administrative work in my background. But to be perfectly honest, I hadn't been on Excel in a good couple of years before I, got this most recent job. So, we're in the pandemic and things obviously changed radically. And I was working in the non-union space, and there were really no protocols, and I didn't feel very safe there at all. And I also, I was just noticing different industries and who was responding with testing protocols and who wasn't. And even though we were all very early on in the pandemic and not, going sort of day by day with news and information, I did, just based on what I can gather and discern and intuitively feel, like testing was important. And the fact that Hollywood and the unions came together to really be proactive about that was something that was very exciting to me. Peripherally, not to the extent that I thought I would like start working in the industry. But I noticed that, and one of my very dear friends was working in health and safety on season 4 in 911. And health and safety was a department that they basically created. It's not the same as production safety. And it came, so Disney Studios built these different, departments with these health and safety managers and these new COVID or health monitors. And it was off and running. And my friend was telling me about it. And it was like, what? You do this, you do that. You're monitoring distance and social distance and masks and testing and all the things. She invited me to temp, over the summer of, July last year. And I haven't looked back since. And I'm on a 12-hour plus workday right now. I'm gonna not check my email for the next, 1 hour and 45 minutes, and I know it's gonna be fine. So what this looks like is I'm a testing administrator. A lot of people ask me, do you swab? I'm not a swabber. I do not actually administer the COVID tests. However, I am key and core to the team that manages the information that we get through testing all of the crew and all of the cast. Now, I'm on the crew side, myself and one other testing administrator. That means every single crew member that works every single day, 5 days a week, sometimes, on a weekend, but usually Monday through Friday only. Every department, they must go through pre-employment eligibility testing. And now they have to also go through uploading their vaccine information. Now, one might think that it is enough to just email someone and tell them to go test. That is not what it looks like. It is a very, very close contact, if you will, but remote contact of communication. More than I've worked at, top level in communications, at different industries in New York. And I'm telling you, I've never had to communicate as much as I've had to communicate since in the last however many months since July. Literally sending out, we have day players, and we have, who rotate on and off based on, needs of, whatever we're shooting and where. And then we have our sort of standard core crew, but we're looking at a couple of hundred on the call sheet every night, right? So to set up day players, it's communicating all of the information about where they go to test. You can't test at every lab. We only have 4 that are approved. Location for them to test, hours for them to test, making sure that they get their results, making sure that we get their results, making sure that they test in a certain amount of time so that we can have them approved by their call time, which could vary anywhere between whatever it is, 6, 7 in the morning, or if they have a later call. So we are managing that where we are the point person, and we get the request from, it's not in quotes, it's a request from the department heads or the best boy grip or whomever it is that's sending us, this is who I'm bringing in, person A on Thursdays, working Thursday and Friday. Okay, we need them to test Tuesday or Wednesday and then get them in the cadence. We have different zones established by Disney. So we have a zone A testing cadence, which would be Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And zone A is defined as essentially working on set and close contact with actors. Zone B, once a week, but when we were at peak, we were testing zone B 3 times a week as well. So we have pre-employment testing to get people eligible. And then once they're on board, they're in the cadence, right? However, they fall out of the cadence if they don't work for the whole week. So with day players, they're rotating in and out. This one's on Monday, Tuesday, Friday. This one's on, Wednesday, Thursday. We're managing all of this information. There's no pre-existing system. We built this whole thing in Excel. So we have spreadsheets like I have not used in years. I mean, I literally had to start a new twice a day meditation practice to deal with the effects of being on Excel this much. But you start to see how important this is and what this is doing. And it becomes this whole charting and finding and chasing and where's this one and where's that in plan. And it is just making sure they test. Once they test, then, results, no results, that's the next step, right? But just getting them tested is the most important thing. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we bring the testing to the crew and cast. So that looks like if they're shooting on the lot, on a Disney Fox lot, which is in Culver City, we are setting up in front of the stages and in front of a trailer, and I'm sitting outside on a computer checking people in, 200 people over the course of 5 to 6 hours to test. Now, because the stakes are so high and work eligibility is determined by whether someone has A, tested, and B, tested negative, when they check in, we're also doing what we call the discount double check. I have the best team ever, by the way. We make each other laugh about everything. And if you don't have a sense of humor, definitely this is not for you, because it's like, forget it. We just have to laugh it all out, but it is super important. So it's 5:30 in the morning and it's this one and it's that one and it's, are they eligible? And wait a second, they're not on my list over here. Are they on the spreadsheet over here? Are they on it? Let me check the portal, because we do have the sacred, portal, which has all of the, through the lab, which has all of the results. We don't see results because of at my level, I don't see results. I only see if they tested. So go and make sure they tested. If they didn't, you're not going to work. So I've had to, numerous, various, I would say, not numerous, but various occasions had to, come over here. And this has nothing to do with symptoms. This is a whole nother thing. This is just that they didn't test and somehow they got through, which doesn't happen that much. But let's say it did. We catch it. What are you doing? Oh, maybe they did test, maybe they tested on a different show and we have to grab the results. Maybe they didn't, maybe they fell out, so it's things like that to kind of, so we're there on location, we're checking people in, we're keeping them with at set rather, and then we're keeping them up with their cadence. But sometimes that looks like going to location, and my show shoots all in the boonies and I'm from New York, and where am I going now? Santa Clarita or, Long Beach, or, and it's 5:30 in the morning. That's when I have to be there, because crew call is at 7, let's say, hypothetically speaking, which is often. And then testing is set up 90 minutes before. And then I have to get there 30 to 45 minutes before testing opens, because it's an event and you don't roll into your event right at the start of the event. You roll into the event 45 minutes early in case there's no nurse. And what happened to the nurse? She's not here. I have to call another nurse at 5:15 in the morning. Again, it doesn't happen that often because my team is amazing, but I have to be there just in case, and it's part of my job. So I'm driving at 4:30 in the morning to get to your beautiful places in California, which are all very new to me. That's just the personal side of it, but certainly learned a lot about California. And some of my friends in the industry, they were like, well, girl, you wanted to get to know LA and California, and there you are, you're welcome. And it's you get there and we set up and we run it. And so we have a trailer, and we send, we check people in, we do the double check, they get, swabbed, they get tested. And then we do that 3 days a week for the entire season. Now, that's communicating with every department. Where does Transpo want to stick us? Where does, does production need us to go to the trailers where talent is, or can talent come to us? Like Angela is not always coming to us, Oliver is not always coming to us. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, we meet the talent at their trailers to make it as seamless an experience as possible. And that's something that I mentioned in my notes when I talk about what I'm gonna, talk about. The attitude of positivity has never proven to be more important than what I have in this particular experience. We've learned everyone's name, to the best of our ability, behind masks. Like, our lead nurse knows every crew name, every talent, every actor, whether they're like, she knows names, everyone. We make it friendly. We make, because people have opinions about, obviously, that's the other thing too. We're not dealing with like, how would you like your coffee this morning? It's so good to see you at 5:30. It's like, I'm wearing a mask, you're wearing a mask. I'm asking you to swab for the 87th time this, season, or maybe I'm asking you to swab for the first time and you don't like COVID and you don't think it exists. You know what I mean? Like, I'm saying everyone has personalities about it, opinions rather. So the personality factor, the positivity factor, being gracious, learning people's names, making it fun. Sometimes, like, my colleague is the best at that. He's incredible. And he has like music playing, and like, I'm like, bless you. Like, I had to learn, like, just, making it fun and making it as joyful a touch point as possible and being incredibly efficient. It's the marriage of those two things, I think, has made us very successful. And people tell our team all the time, they're like, you guys are like the best, like, we love your team so much. Like, we're just so grateful for you. Like, people, we know that everybody is doing their best. Like, at least that's our premise. If people can't test for a certain reason, like, we try and come from the benefit of the doubt, position. Like, okay, got it. Like, you're wrapping another show, or like, you had to get up super early. How can we help? And testing starts at our labs at 5 o'clock in the morning. So sometimes I get phone calls at 5:30 in the morning from like a new, fill in the blank crew member who's like, hey, I'm looking for, like, where is this, lab site? I'm like trying to find it. I'm in, Highland Park or wherever I am. And and it's like, okay, yeah, let me help you. It's very much a service position too, as much as it's an information management position. And the reason why I think that's wonderful is because for, certainly also for women in film, and just from like an industry standpoint, is like, it really is this human point of contact. It has, it's like these like big grips, like one will like pull me over and be like, my son is like, they're talking, like, people are communicating about, right? Like, about, health. And even though I, not a health professional, obviously, but have certain, obviously, when someone has symptoms, we handle that. There's a series, protocols that we do, and it's bumped up, and usually the person's going to be asked to go home if they have any respiratory symptoms. It's like, not usually, always, like, having that sort of person-to-person contact, I think, has changed some of the tone and tenor of what it's like, to work on sets. If it's done right, people feel like they can trust you and they can talk to you and they could let you in a little bit. And I think that that's a very positive thing when it comes to health and safety on set, sort of broadly speaking, because usually it's miscommunication, lack of awareness, and lack of human-to-human contact that causes mistakes to happen. So I have a, kind of a strong, not kind of, but I have a strong point of view about that. And I feel grateful to be in this position. I would say that, we err on the side of you can never be too safe. And in terms of like going forward, that definitely is something that aligns with it's funny, it aligns with my personal philosophy. Like when you kind of look back and you're just like, oh, how did I end up in this position? And it's like, well, I care about people's health, and I do care about, people being safe with each other. And I've read some, industry, obviously everybody has opinions, and I can certainly hear people's opinions and points of view about what testing does, and if it, whether it's a benefit or not. And, my own personal opinion is that it can be done without making it a place of anxiety. It can be done, it can come from a place of, this is a safety measure. It's easy to do. It's literally a little tickle, like you wait, it takes 15 seconds. And like, it's not something that has to be like, oh my God, like the testing, and we're gonna have to like, maybe we're like, it can be approached from a place of, this is a precaution, and it doesn't have to be done with anxiety. It doesn't have to create an environment of fear or gotcha without your mask, but at the same time, if someone is not abiding by a certain protocol, we're going to say something, and that's important. And to this day, I mean, we're in month, whatever. I keep saying month, whatever. I should probably do the math between July and now, but we're wrapping in a couple of weeks. And literally, what day is it? I don't even know. What time is it? It's like a little bit like that. We're there. We wrap 4/4. But like if we do see, especially now that the numbers are down in LA County, it's like, if people are not abiding by protocol, like we still have to, of course, have to say something, and like that will always be the practice, like whatever the protocol is. I'm part of the compliance enforcement team. I don't have an opinion about it. I'm not wearing my mask when I go outside, but I'm wearing my mask when I'm working, and that's what it is. I would say as well, the kind of the ins and outs of it for me now, especially looking back, like I've never worked a job like this on the like production crew side, like this sort of close, with this much close contact with the crew, and like really seeing, because we have a lot of contact with like the second ADs and keys, and basically like just seeing the onboarding and the how much they go through to make the show happen, and like, because bringing in day players, making changes last minute, script revisions, like the sort of 24-hour cycling of it between all the departments, like the COVID compliance, or health and safety. We rarely use the word COVID, by the way. I never ever referred myself to COVID testing admin. It's testing admin. Hey, we're checking out your testing, never health and safety. Rarely do we don't really say COVID, but for what it's worth, our team and this work is without a doubt, like, I don't want to say it's like the nucleus but yeah. Okay, Christina, you're like actually say it. Like, say it. All right, fine. It's the nucleus in these days of production, because guess what? If something doesn't, if this one didn't test, they don't even have to be positive. They just have to have not tested. If someone doesn't test, that's it. The show doesn't go on unless you want to replace your fill in the blank very important crew member or very important talent. It's like the levels of importance on this information management is, and that's why, again, I think it's almost like if departments were sort of siloed and like, does like do special effects speak to, that with our team, we're like the definitely like the sort of center through which a lot of pipelines go through. You know what I mean? Like, everyone has to speak to us because they have to speak to us about onboarding their people and getting them tested. So I'm probably at a 10-minute mark, I think, or close to it. I'm gonna wrap here and pass it over to Christina, and hopefully some of that resonated and was helpful information. And I'm, of course, more than happy to take any questions when we open it up for that.
Oh, Lindsey, that was so good. Thank you so much. Wow, it's just incredible all that you're doing, and that you're creating something out of thin air, a whole new job, and that it is the nucleus. It is so important. So thank you so much, and we'll definitely come back around and get questions from you. But next we have Christina McKinley. Recently, she became a COVID compliance officer. So welcome, Christina. And she also is our newest board member. And so, Christina, if you could share with us a bit about becoming certified and what it's like on set, or any advice, or how it is
Yeah.
to monitor on set.
Yeah. So hi, everybody. I'm Christina McKinley. I recently, within, what month is it? It's March. I became certified. I feel like maybe in December or January for COVID compliance. I wanted to give a shout out to Margo. I see you here. She was the director of the TV show soap opera that I was working on. So hey, Margo, it was a pleasure working with Margo. So yeah, just a little bit about myself before I jump in. Right now I'm doing freelance social media managing, as well as PA work, and kind of fell into the COVID compliance world because I was working with Margo and her show Lesbian Straits, and I was doing their social media, and she expressed the need for a COVID compliance officer and asked if I wanted to do it. And I was like, sure, why not? It's another thing to do. So here I am. So becoming COVID compliant certified is actually pretty easy. So you take a course online. I took mine through Health Education Services. It's an 1.5-hour class that you sign up for, and you get a certificate at the end of it. And it was $50. And at the end of it, you have this thing that you can use, and you can be a COVID compliance manager for sets, which is pretty cool, I think. So about the class, it's kind of like any other Zoom thing that you would go to. They let you in, they have a PowerPoint presentation that they give you about 1.5 hours long. Like I said, it's very in-depth, which was great. I loved it. I thought that it was super interesting. Before even stepping back like a year or two, I was a preschool teacher when the pandemic started. So I definitely am super familiar with just health safety during COVID in general. You got to keep the little ones safe, especially before vaccines. But kids are sick all the time anyway. So even before COVID, but then adding COVID on top of it. And like the little ones weren't wearing masks. So I was super well aware of how to, just be safe. So I would say a lot of it, especially 2 years into this pandemic, is kind of second nature at this point of like, yeah, you wash your hands, yeah, you social distance. But a lot of it was really cool hearing how specific to set it got, and that you were the person that's going to be doing that, like kind of like you were saying, Lindsay, somebody had to create all of this. And I was learning how to do that. So I was learning things specific to just like what is a role of the COVID compliance officer, things that you're going to have a kit. So things that you need to include in your kit, like alcohol, gloves, thermometers, a bunch of things that you'll need while you're on set. So you're going to build your kit, and you can bill that for each production that you're doing to restock. And then things like you have to check everybody in the morning, and what does that look like? You need to do a screening survey, and you need to take their temperature, and their temperature has to be this, and it's over that, it has to do this. It was very technical, but again, pretty digestible. Again, at this point, we kind of know what you're looking for. So it was really interesting. Took notes like I was in college again, and I was, writing up a bunch of stuff. And at the end of it, you take a quiz, which if you were listening, you can pass. And then a few days, they send you your certificate. And then along with the certificate, they send you a huge, a bunch of resources, like the PowerPoint that they gave. They sent me samples of screening surveys just for symptoms, like in the past 48 hours, have you experienced cough, shortness of breath, blah, 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 all the things that I'm sure everybody's filled out at least once at this point. They sent me posters to post around set to remind people of social distancing and washing their hands. They sent me a list of approved disinfectants, because some don't do enough, and some, there's apparently a list, and I didn't know that, of different types of disinfectants. So they sent me a bunch of different resources on that, which was super, super helpful. Since I was going to be working with the production crew on what we were going to be doing in terms of COVID safety for this production, we were going to be working together on, you know, what we were doing. So I took all of that knowledge and I took it to the production crew, the director and the producers, and said, hey, this is what I learned and this is what I need from you guys. And thankfully everybody was super easy to work with. I think that, you know, I expressed to everybody, my job is to keep everybody safe. I don't want anybody to get sick. So if, you know, you listen to me and cooperate with me, because like Lindsey said, your word kind of comes first. You know, the director and the producer can say all they want, but if somebody didn't test, sorry, you can't come on set. So, which is kind of intense, but it is what it is. Because again, you just want to keep everybody safe. And thankfully nobody got sick for our 2-week shoot. So it was great. So yeah, so I took everything that I learned and I said, hey, this is a list of stuff that I need. And Margo said, got it. And she ordered it all right that night. And yeah, and then I had a meeting with cast and crew at one point and just gave my spiel of this is what I expect of everybody, and everybody listened. And I feel, and you know, I am a nice person at the end of the day, but, you know, make my job easy. And, you know, if you don't, then I won't be as nice, but I think that I'm a nice person. So don't make me not be nice. So yeah, so where next? So once the production came, kind of what it looked like per day was I had to be pre-called in the morning to make sure I was the first person on set. I had my little area right in the front to make sure that I was the first person that everybody saw, and checked everybody in. You can do it electronically or through paper, but we did paper of the screening surveys, and temperature checks, and and even before that, making sure that everybody tested. Obviously, I was doing kind of Lindsey's job because it was a pretty small production, reaching out to everybody, making sure that you had a PCR lab test done, not like a rapid at home test done 48 hours before your first call time. So it was a lot of communicating with people and making sure I was keeping track of everything. Excel sheets, man, they are super fun. But yeah, anyway, back to the production side, checking everybody in the morning. I was the first person greeting everybody with hand sanitizer and a piece of paper and a clipboard. And, you know, I'm sure the last thing that somebody wants to do at 7 in the is see me all bright and chipper. Hi, good morning. Nice to see you. Fill out my survey, please, before you go inside. So yeah, so, and then once everybody was checked in, that was kind of the like biggest part of it, making sure I made a list every single day of who was going to be on set to make sure I had everybody. Yeah, after that, just kind of talking with everybody to make sure that everybody was feeling good, because this was kind of the end of Omicron. So they were really emphasizing during the class that check in with people halfway through the day, just because symptoms can come on so quickly with Omicron. So just kind of making sure that everybody was good and coordinating with Crafty to make sure that they were using gloves when they were giving out the food, and you know, just making sure that everything was running smoothly. I had a bottle of isopropyl alcohol, you know, spraying down the railings and areas where people were eating, like before and after, but, you know, kind of doing it seamlessly of, you know, like I knew when lunch was going to be, so I'd spray it down before, and then everybody would head back in and spray it down after really quickly. And, you know, making sure that people, and everybody was really helpful. Like, you know, I didn't feel like I had to be the mask police for the most part. Again, we've been doing this for long enough. I know nobody wants to wear a mask inside at this point. And it was interesting because it was right when the mask mandate was lifted, but we decided to continue. And I think for union reasons, we had to as well, but it was just kind of an interesting time of like, what's happening? What are we doing? But yeah, so everybody, again, nobody wanted to get sick, I think. So everybody was super nice with that. Yeah, so, and that was the main thing, just making sure the areas are clean. And making sure that everybody was feeling good, and between takes, opening up doors, because we were shooting in a house, opening up doors for proper ventilation between takes and stuff like that. And just kind of directing people outside if people were lingering, just kind of like, hey, just head outside. You don't need to be in here. I know it's fun to watch and you want to watch, but there's just a lot of people in here right now. So yeah, let me just refer back to this really quick to make sure I hit all my points. I think I did. But yeah, it's again, I will reiterate, it's if somebody's looking for a job for set, it's an easy thing to do. And something that they mentioned in the class that, you know, kind of, I want to say with COVID winding down, but like it's not. I think that everybody thinks that it is, but it's not. It eventually is going to kind of be turning into just like a health and safety officer. So just because I think that everybody just has different standards of cleanliness at this point. So I think that even with COVID being gone, a job like this is still going to be around even after, just to make, because, you know, I think people realize that sets can be kind of dirt, or everywhere, not even just sets, can be kind of dirty, and people get sick, and people don't want to be sick anymore. It's not fun. So yeah, I would recommend, even in these times of like, we're 2 years in, it is still an important thing to do, and it will still be a thriving thing, I think, for probably another year or so, if anybody's interested in getting into COVID compliance as a way to get on set. But yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you, Lindsey. And we're going to open up for questions and some answers to those questions. And Tasha's going to take over the rest of the evening. But I personally found this so interesting because, like you said so eloquently, Christina, it's not fun to be sick and have your whole crew get sick. You know, as we know, one person gets sick on a crew and it really ruins the whole thing. It takes all the joy out. So I just think what you guys are doing is phenomenal, and we really appreciate it. And we're going to go ahead and put it back on over to Miss Tasha Nesbitt, our president. And thank you, everyone, very much.
Thanks, Julie. Thanks for being here. Yeah, this is so many I wrote down so many questions for myself that I want to ask, but I'm going to invite everyone in the audience to write their questions into the chat if you have questions. And I might just start it off actually with my question about just the difference between, Lindsey, your team. How big is your crew? How big is your entire the shoot, like everybody on the shoot, on the whole crew list? And then how big is your team in relationship to that, as opposed to Christina's? And how big, Christina, was your crew all together on Margo's piece? And then how big was your team? So Lindsey, I'll start with you.
Sure, thanks, Tasha. I would say we're in the 200 to 250 person crew. And not all of them are Zone A, of course. We're probably looking at about 175, 150, 175 plus talent that comes through. But we have, you know, on the call sheet every day and night, we're looking at minimum 200 people. Myself and my incredible, extraordinary partner in crime, partner in COVID compliance, I should say, is the two of us manage it, the testing. We have 2 managers, so there's 4 of us, but we are the 2 testing admins that handle all of the crew. And then there's a 3rd who handles talent and a 4th who handles background scheduling. And that is a lot of liaising with Central, obviously. Yeah, I mean, then there's a coordinator, and then someone who brought on once we had the vaccine mandate. And then there are about 6 or 7 health and safety monitors, and they're the ones who are monitoring the set and doing more of the compliance work, similar to Christina.
Yeah, our cast and crew was much smaller. Ours was about 20 to 30, I think, on like the biggest day, maybe, just with everybody. So yeah, I was the head COVID compliance officer. We had a PA on set that also had her COVID compliance certificate as well. So there were a few times where I was doing something else that I would check in with her and just be like, hey, could you just take the reins and be the head person with this. But yeah, it was mainly me. And I felt like it was manageable for that many people. But yeah, for your Lindsay, but 250 people, you need a whole crew for sure.
It's,
Go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say I was shook and overwhelmed at first by the size and magnitude. The scale was unlike anything I had worked for, and again, you know, that sort of, I refer to it as sort of the analog nature of it. Like, I mean, we're literally entering in Excel the information and tracking it. So not to be redundant, but it's a really important part, I think, to just recognize from the standpoint of the work commitment. You know, it's a lot of information and a lot of people to be keeping track of, and it includes, you know, we work weekends as well. We alternate, you know, Saturday or Sunday, because we get new day players who set up, you know, to set them up for Monday, Tuesday. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. And I think what's really neat about this is we have like a small independent, you know, shoot, and then we have this like union set. And I think it's really important to be able to look at these two, all of it's happening and all in between sizes. So it's really important moving forward that this is a very important part of the whole production in general. So I see lots of questions coming in. I think these are lots of questions. Yeah. Kelly's asking, are there things loosening up at all, or is it everything still really strict, or does it depend on the production? One of you just jump in and yeah, take it.
I mean, I can certainly say where I am, we tightened things kind of right as Omicron was happening. You know, the studios tightened them, and that looked like a new, you know, and this was the return to work agreement. Work eligibility looks like being boosted, and approved PPE are N95s. So the mask requirement changed for indoor masking, you know, by set, and the vaccine booster requirement. And then that was happening, that rollout was happening like right as LA County was, you know, rolling back its mask mandates, and people had a lot of feelings, you know, sort of, you know, in the sort of entertainment world that we are in. Of course, there are people who have, you know, some thoughts and feelings about that. And I would say that going forward, I don't know. I can just say that we're holding, you know, where we're at presently, and I'm sure the studios are, you know, going to be revisiting things and taking them a day at a time. I'm sure, I hope, and we'll see what happens.
Yes, there are lots of feelings around the whole thing. I can only imagine. Christina, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I echo exactly what Lindsay said. I don't really foresee anything loosening per se anytime soon. I mean, I haven't heard anything. I don't know if something would get sent out to me if things were to change, just because of everything that I learned would be changing. So I kind of hope that I do, but I really don't think that anything's going to be loosening. And then, especially around here, I don't really think people want to. Everybody wanted to keep their mask on for the most part when we were shooting. I know I did, or even just while we were outside, even though it is safer out there, I just wanted to be super safe with it too.
Something that might change, or that has seen some evolution, involves the antigen tests, the rapids, and which ones are accepted. The PCR tests as well. You know, there are only, you know, certain studios would have, you know, we have a lab that we use, and it's not the same lab as, you know, what a different studio might use. And certainly it's not part of my job ever to do like the due diligence on which lab and which test, but I imagine if I'm, if I'm working on an independent project, then that would probably be another piece, because it's not like there's only one, right? Like there are different options for the kinds of PCRs that the lab source, and there are different options for the rapid tests, the antigens, and then you have a decision to make around whether you want to allow rapids. I mean, we use them sometimes, we use them on top of PCRs, but it is a rare exception if someone didn't test, then they allow a rapid or an antigen for the day, depends on it, right? So that's something else to consider when you're setting up your testing protocols, if you're going to have them for your set.
So, I mean, this is a question for both of you as well as, when something fails, when someone does test positive, when more than one person gets sick, or when there is a break in the system, what implications does that have for a large set and even for a small set? Like what happens? Do they not get funded? Does the insurance lapse? Like how does it all look?
I can answer what that looks like just like on set. So if somebody tests positive, so Lindsey mentioned the zone system, which was something that we used on our set as well. So it was kind of the zone A were the people that needed to be there. So the cam ops, and the talent and sound. And then zone B was more, you would set up monitors for the producers and directors to watch, and then other people that kind of needed to be on set. And then zone C for us was outside. So everybody else that was there that didn't need to be on set. So that was a good way of tracking. If somebody tested positive, you would kind of look to those zones to see who they were around. And, obviously if they're talent, they're unmasked. So that's definitely something that you're going to need to take serious action immediately. But let's say like a cam op in zone A tested positive. They would need to talk to the COVID compliance officer. And it is a need to know basis of, HIPAA, and just making sure that everything is under wraps with that. Technically, I'm not even supposed to tell, I think I can tell the director who, obviously, because they're not going to be on set, but beyond that, nobody else needs to know that. And so that person needs to, as soon as, if they test positive, they cannot come, obviously, but if they're feeling symptomatic while they're on set, they need to leave set immediately. And then we are to recommend them to talk to their doctor on how to test, because that's going to be, I'm not a doctor. They will know better. But anybody that was, if they were positive, anybody that was in close contact, that being within 6 feet unmasked, and I think 15 feet masked or something like that, for an extended period of time, which I think is 15 minutes, will also need to test immediately. And then the set will be shut down. If somebody tests positive, the set will be shut down. It needs to be cleaned by an outside professional, and then can reopen the next day. As far as I remember, Lindsey, correct me if I'm wrong. I think that is what it is.
Yeah, and it doesn't even necessarily have to shut down if someone if we find out someone has a positive, that there's a positive, it doesn't necessarily stop production.
Mm-hmm.
A memo will go out in there will be contact tracing based on whoever the crew member had interactions with, just like what you said. They'll be quarantined based on the contact tracing and exposure, and then a memo goes out to the entire cast and crew saying, definitely to the entire crew, I'm pretty sure. That's a good question. Actually, I don't know. I know it definitely goes out to the crew. I don't know if it also goes through agents to talent, saying that there was a zone A positive test and that contact tracing is underway, and That's it. Doesn't mention anything else, but the memo will go out.
And this is from your department. You will be the ones.
Yeah, it's a health and safety memo that's distributed out of the production office. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that comes out pretty fast. Christina, did you have something else that you were going to say, or should I just piggyback on? Yeah. So we have a much more, we have a broader swath of Zone A. Pretty much, all of our grips, all of our set lighting technicians, we decided to put special effects, visual effects into it if they're there, and special FX. We have, transpo, everybody, and we pretty much have like majority of everyone showing up on the call sheet now in Zone A, and that brings them into the 3 times a week testing cadence, it's sort of similar to what Christina was saying. Obviously, if someone falls out of, and needs to go home, if there's a way to replace, we do. The health and safety managers who get the results get contacted if there's a positive. So it's not incumbent upon the crew to contact us. We have the positive probably before the crew member has it. Then they have it. Then there's communication, and this can be at 4 a.m. This can be at 12 o'clock at night. We can't, these labs, especially labs we use, they have a lot of people. We have a great lab, and we get our results in a timely fashion, but like things are coming in at 24/7. So if someone has to get pulled, this is also to just answer what you do with last minute vacancies. We try and get, someone in who's tested in the last 48 hours, or send someone to go test at 10 o'clock at night so that they can come the next morning as soon as, we have a result for them.
I have a friend who's an actress, and they're paying her like to get tested before they go for auditions and things. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I can't speak to that. I don't know what is going on the talent side in that regard, but I can certainly say that hearing that doesn't surprise me. Just knowing that people want to be, in a position where they can, show that they have tested. Of course, it varies on the production. Obviously, if you're working for a certain studio, you have to go to a certain lab, as I've said a few times. But like that doesn't surprise me. I don't know. I can't speak to that directly, though.
I can only speak to it a little bit, just being a production assistant. Technically, they are supposed to pay you to test, but I haven't experienced that. They kind of have a lot of places I've worked with have had a small little workaround of like, oh, well, you could go to a free place, and but usually they will reimburse you for the test if it costs money. And I've been reimbursed for mileage to and from, and I've been said like pad your mileage a little bit to reimburse for your time, but I haven't experienced it really. But technically, yes, you are supposed to get paid for testing because it's your time.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, we
generous. You have a very generous production team, Christina.
Yeah. No, we also pay for pre-employment tests 100%. I thought the question was more like, are people testing to just be ready to work?
No, the talent agency is paying her like to go get tested so that they can use her in, I guess, put her.
Yeah, again, that's very interesting. Like we pay crew to, and they get their testing stipend to test if they're not currently working, right? So if they're in the pre-employment cycles and then brought on as day players. But yeah, no, I that's the first I'm hearing of like an agency paying talent to like have them ready.
So I would have loved to I want to take a moment to say that, of course, we're missing one of our panelists this evening. We didn't mention this earlier. She couldn't be here tonight, so I want to just apologize for that, but we're having a wonderful conversation and we'll just keep on moving. So there is a question, I really wanted her to speak to the idea of like, what does it look like to have to budget for this? What does it look like to have to budget for this COVID compliance component and this team? And what are the implications on the budget? So if you at all can speak to that, that would be wonderful. My second part of that, if not, that's fine. My second part of that question is, what is a standard? Let's see, there was a question here from Robin asking, is there an established SAG base rate for a compliance manager, health safety crew? And what does that look like?
I can speak on the second part of the question. In my class, it basically just said that you can establish your rate and establish a kit fee as well, whatever because you're going to be bringing in your stuff, your alcohol, your hand sanitizer, your this, that. Productions might have some of that already, but you kind of have to rely on them not having it. So you can charge like, hey, I'm going to charge you $100 for me to bring all my stuff. But you can say what that number is. So I can't speak on SAG because I am not a part of SAG. If there is some sort of established number, but I mean, if we want to be personal with the numbers, I was charging $225 a day for COVID compliance officer. And then Margo purchased all this stuff to have, so I didn't charge a kit fee for that, but I would probably have charged at least another, depending on how long it is, like probably a $25 a day kit fee as well.
Yeah, I can't necessarily speak too directly to budgeting other than to say that the cost per test is significant, and from my vantage point, knowing what it costs per test and how many tests and the commitment to
Frequency of the test. Per test, all the people, and then the frequency of the test.
And whether you're going to rush results. So we have a standard, turnaround time TAT of 12. And then we have our, if we have to stat rush results, we're looking at 8 hours. And if we're gonna, beg for the ultra super stat, dancing on the ceiling stat, it's like 6 hour turnaround. And there's a different price, for either of those, which is why, as best as possible to be able to plan and get these, find, we test people 48 hours out, because if someone is positive and they can't come, you want to have time to get a replacement, without having to be down to the, wire and rushing, because that's a cost. Right. So, and then obviously you're paying for people to enforce the protocols, you're paying for people to, the back end of the information and testing administration. Yeah, so that's, I would just say that it's definitely a significant line item, but worth it.
Not cheap.
You're muted.
Sorry, thanks. I might put Margo on the spot here if you wanted to speak to it, as having done this for your own set, like preparing. Would you like to just put your 2 cents in on this for an independent set?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Christina was absolutely phenomenal for us. We had a lot of issues with SAG, lots of issues with SAG. And when Christina stepped up and became our COVID compliance officer, it was like a godsend or a goddess send. It was just so great to have her there. When she sent me the list of things that I needed to get for the set, I tend to obsessive compulsive, and I'm sorry I'm dressed like this. I've been logging footage all day long. I budgeted $500 and I spent $456 on all of the supplies, which are now all sitting in my kitchen. We had a lot of stuff because I just didn't want to be shut down because I didn't have enough alcohol. And I'm not talking about that alcohol, I'm talking about the 99 proof stuff. But she let me know what she needed. And as a producer and the director, I I just listened to her. Whatever she said she needed, I wanted to make sure that she had, so that we were safe. And she was on the case throughout. She just did not, and she remained a really nice person. She did not let us down at all. We had one little scare where somebody wasn't feeling well, and boy, she went right to it. And we had a test on site, and we were able to take care of that, and everything was fine. But yeah, I over budgeted, but I just didn't, it's, both of you have said, it's about safety and health. And I sure didn't want anybody on my crew or my cast to get sick because we didn't follow through. So that's my response to that. I hope I answered that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Margo. Thank you so much. I'm gonna just look down here for more questions. What contingencies are being put in place to cover the unexpected last minute and vacant positions? Are there contingencies? Do they cast, understudies? Like, are there more people on the crew list? Like, how does this work?
Yeah, I mean, so sort of similar to what I said earlier, with crew, if they have someone who's in the testing cycle who might have, day played on Wednesday and tested on Wednesday, and then someone drops out late Thursday, we can bring them in potentially on Friday, as long as they're within the 48 hours. If a certain cast member doesn't test or test positive, they don't replace them unless, at least that's only with background have I seen that happen, but not with any co-star guest stars. They will change some. I've seen, a change or two in what they shoot. That's happened. And yeah, it's definitely the kind of thing, like I said, that requires sort of the 24-hour working to make sure that everyone is there who's needed, and no one.
Have you ever experienced anybody who's kind of, there's lots of feelings around it, any indignant people around the situation, and if you could, without, sharing names or something, you can give us the juice.
Yeah, I mean, what I can share is more, there's of course, on a big production, and different unions have different tones maybe around what we are doing in protocols and compliance. I've been, very fortunate, like mostly, everybody is amazing who I, have worked with and encountered. But there was a scenario where I really learned and really grew. And it was early on in the season, and I was on location, and we had there was an earthquake. We were shooting outdoors, and it was a night shoot. There was an earthquake, and we were set up in some just kind of obscure, they were shooting a stunt, the stunt scene out, and base was far from set. So it was like difficult to kind of get people from base to test. And basically I held my boundary that testing ended at a certain time at like 9 o'clock. And then there were like a bunch of crew members who got there after 9, and I thought that I was doing like the right thing to really hold to that early on. That didn't go great, but it did cause a good conversation. It led to better conversation between departments and how we can facilitate better, and whether we need more, a little more of a cushion on a back end for when to close testing, and, tangential related. But what, of course, I absolutely have had conversations even, but this is maybe putting a little bit of a positive spin on it, but why not? Like, I have had some healthy dialogue with crew members around this topic, and we don't agree on things necessarily, but that doesn't mean that we can't work together. So that's a positive, way and real assessment of it, and something that I almost enjoy, because it's good to even, hear certain people's perspectives at various points in the pandemic, even at this stage in the pandemic, with all that is known. It's been curious to hear, and can people on big sets go, or any size sets, can they go forward and create and tell stories and work and do the work and have alignment around creativity if they have differences in points of view on subjects that are heated? And I would say that the answer is yes.
So thank you for sharing. So is there a union forming? I know there, or is there some sort of governing body for this newish role? And is there any standardization in the future? I mean, it seems like there's all these different labs, and there's all these different tests, and there's all these different processes. I've been for work and for going to different locations for different things where I'm working. We're using this app called Clear, where everybody logs in there and uploads their thing, and then everybody knows that everybody's the updates on everyone's, if they can have access to see someone else's vaccination charts or their tests or whatever. So are there talks about that happening? Is there any union forming, or can you speak to that?
I've heard I mean, there's no union now for us. We are unionless, right? And I have heard some little a little buzz that we might be moving in that direction, but I think it's too early to say. Christina, do you have any?
Yeah, I'm not super positive on that one either. I mean, I feel like they should be treated the same as any other crew position, so it should.
Let's see, are there any other questions that Neil, that I've forgotten or didn't see in the chat? If you want to chime in and help me out, that would be really helpful. Thank you.
There's one from Diane.
Mm-hmm.
If production is slowed or stopped due to COVID issues, will production insurance cover the stoppage costs?
Right, that would be a producer probably. Okay, so Debbie were here, she might be able to say something about that. Okay, we don't know that, but it's a great question. Any other ones?
I am more than happy. I mean, I can absolutely find that out in a few hours if it at all helps, and I can shoot that to you, Tasha.
That'd be really great. Yeah, and I can follow up. Sure.
I had a question. I came in late. I tried to get in, but so I don't know if you've covered this, but have you used questionnaires, like an online program that everybody fills out the night before, so that's handled the next day?
We have a little survey that only assesses symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so every day they fill out, everyone fills out.
Do you hand out paper, or it's just they fill it out online?
It's electronic. It's through a website, and it just takes them, and then once it's clear, they get a green check. And
I did it on the computer once, and everybody was like, "Oh yeah, I did it. Oh, I'm gonna do it. And it was like I was chasing people down after.
It has the green check, and then or something that could give them a little button that they a little badge or swords.
Oh right, like I voted.
Right. Sticker, if you will.
I like it.
Flash it, and that seems to work. That happens for us at the gate, or there's, as long as there's an electronic kind of badge, you get around having to chase.
Yeah. That's good. What about you, Christine? Is that for something smaller?
Yeah, we did ours with paper. That was just a choice by production staff. But yeah, it does need to be done every single day. It's not something like, oh yeah, you can fill it out the night before, it's fine, because symptoms change. So it's the first thing that somebody does when they get there in the morning, they have to find head COVID compliance officer, and fill that out every single day, because
Right. No, that's good though. And I do like the idea of that morning as opposed to the night before, where you can track
You
it
could wake
down
up,
that it was
yeah.
done.
You could wake up with a stuffy nose the next morning and, or a sore throat. So things could change.
Mhm.
Yeah. So yeah. And then if you do get COVID compliance certified, at least the company that I did it through sent me a sample one of like a list of symptoms, but I'm sure you could Google it and find it as well. But you've been asked the million times, do you have cough, shortness of breath, fever? Have you been exposed to somebody that has COVID? Have you tested positive for COVID? So it's like, 15 questions that you're going to be asked every single day.
Okay, good.
So in the case of an early spring, when someone's got headaches and sinuses,
Allergies, yeah.
allergies, like so
Yeah.
what happens?
I haven't been to the lot in like a week. Seriously, and I haven't had COVID, and in this entire pandemic, thank God, but I have had like a lot of other than like
everything else.
Right, I got ABC, or EBC, I say everything but COVID.
So it really is just a test.
Yeah,
the test will tell, essentially, right?
I would tell people because as they're filling it out, like one of the things was like fatigue, and it's like, oh, haha, yeah, I'm here at 7 a.m. Of course I'm tired. But I would tell them like anything out of the norm. Like, because people do have allergies, but if you know that you have allergies, like, yeah, you have congestion, but it's not anything irregular for you.
Right.
That was kind of my like test with that. Because allergies happen, or you just have a chronic stuffy nose, or you sneezed 10 minutes ago, something like that.
Okay, great. Thanks.
I have a question for Christina. Now that I'm sorry, I'm in the dark here. Now that you're a newly minted, health and safety officer, and you want to get more work doing this, where will you go? How will you find new work? Is there any is it all word of mouth, or what are you finding?
So during the class, they did mention that I was put in some sort of database, and they said that people would be reaching out to me. I haven't experienced that. I think it's like a union database of like, oh, this is where people will go if they need COVID compliance officers. But everything that I've word of mouth, woman in film, San Francisco Bay Area, perhaps would be good for that. But yeah, I'm definitely a part of a good amount of local Facebook groups that I have seen saying like, hey, I need a COVID compliance officer that I could respond to. I feel like that would be the best way possible. But I've heard from other people saying that they, like they would go on those groups and just post their certificate and say like, hey, if you need me, I'm here. So maybe people would like write down their names or something. But again, there is a database. Apparently, I haven't heard anything from it though.
I went to Women in Film. That's what I did, because I find that Women in Film is one of the best networking sources for me. And we found Christina for our social media position, and then when the going got really tough trying to find a compliance officer, I went into Women in Film, and I went into all kinds of, but I really suggest Women in Film, because with Women in Film, you can get a referral, and you can actually meet the person, and you can be hiring a woman in this position. So that's what we did. And we got really lucky with her. Thank you, Christina.
Thanks, Margo.
So Neil asks, are PCR tests required only before production and then antigen tests after that? Or?
Yeah, we use PCR tests throughout, and only antigens only in very rare cases and or for close contact with babies. So the guardians and any talent that is interacting with babies and littles will get rapids the morning of.
So I'd like to invite anyone from the audience now to chime in if you have any direct questions you want to ask myself or anyone else on the call. Thank you all for being here. Any more questions from the crowd before we start.
And again, because I'm late and I just dove into this, are you both Bay Area or LA or?
Yeah, I'm in LA and I work for the show 9.
Oh, right. Okay, great. Have you found do you think that there's a big difference as far as, I mean, I know that in LA and there's gonna be certain places where you have larger crew, a lot more to juggle. But do you find it a big difference in San Francisco as far as rates, as far as people not pushing back? I'm just curious if there's anything.
Oh, COVID, you mean like the numbers? I thought you meant the rates. I'm like, how much we're getting.
Oh, oh no.
The COVID, the numbers.
Right.
Right. I don't, I can't speak to.
Do you follow those?
Yeah, for sure. But I don't know where they're tracking right now compared to San Francisco.
Okay, cool.
Any other questions? So as we move into this last phase and sort of wind down the call, maybe is there anything, Christina, that any advice or any thoughts that you want to leave independent producers or directors or filmmakers on the call with around the subject?
Yeah, I mean, I think listen to your COVID compliance officer. I think that they have your best interest in mind. They don't, like we were saying earlier, they could get you shut down if, something were to happen. So listen to them. They're not trying to, they're not trying to gouge you. They just want to keep everybody safe, everything. I think that sometimes it can be like, oh, why do you need gloves? Why do you need this? Why do you need that? Everything is necessary. They wouldn't be telling it to you if it wasn't. And yeah, I think that they just have your best interest at heart, and nobody wants to get sick, I think is the best thing I can say.
Lindsey, do you have some last thoughts and advice for people going into a set?
Yeah, I mean, I would say to circle back to the start of, how Julie set this up, it is a new era, and whether it's this pandemic or a different pandemic or other emergencies to respond to, what I believe is a real sort of benefit of this whole growth part of the industry is how nimble we are becoming in adapting to the challenges that are facing us, whether it's a health challenge or something else. And I believe these are also very transferable skills. So, when I was working initially, it was like, it felt a bit myopic at first, and it was like, what am I doing in the COVID lane? You know what I mean? And it's actually a much broader, bigger lane and conversation. So I think that, again, to really embrace it as just another, rather than being like a burden to have to, take these steps and precautions, to think of it as a way that we are becoming, more nimble and more adaptive to changing times, and how strong a position that is for a filmmaker to have. And certainly if anyone has any questions, you can get my information. I'm happy to stay in touch. And thanks again for having me.
Great.
Yeah, thank you so very much to the both of you for being here. This is, I really was looking forward to this, and I've learned a lot. Julie, do you have anything you want to mention before we hand it over to Robin for a few things?
Just thank you. This was so educational and very informative. And I think, it makes us a little bit more compassionate, understanding that I recently had someone tell me, I hate the monitor, and I've been turned in so many times by the monitor. And one of our makeup, my friend that does makeup on Hawaii, used to do on Hawaii Five-0, she just did another show and she said, "They're just doing their job, man. You know, we just need to be a little bit more compassionate with each other and a little bit more healthy, you know, and try and lead with compassion." So thank you both so much. You are amazing. We really appreciate it. And thank you, Tasha.